Hello and welcome. Welcome to Everything is Energy and welcome to the full moon in Libra, which is exact on April 1st, 2026 at 7:12 p.m. Pacific time. This is a full moon with themes of balance, devotion, and right action. And this full moon arrives at 12 degrees of Libra with the sun directly opposing it at 12 degrees of Aries. And while a full moon is always a moment or a time and a space of illumination, this is also, it's a moment and a space where something becomes visible that was previously beneath the surface. And it's worth noting that this particular full moon is not necessarily simple. And this is because it's embedded with a superstellium of planets and celestial bodies, both in Aries, that's one superstellium, as well as Pisces, another superstellium. And if you listen to my last recording, we already had a bunch of planets hanging out in those signs. While the personal planets have shifted around a bit, the the outer planets and the trans-Neptunian objects and other celestial bodies have all come to create just so much energy. Wait till you hear about it. I'm going to get to it. But in general, this moon in Libra is about reflecting and illuminating. It's about reflecting and illuminating everything that's happening across Aries and Pisces as well as Libra. So I'm going to move slowly through the chart today, unpacking each placement and what it represents. And let's start with the moon in Libra at 12 degrees. The moon represents our internal world, our emotional body. It also represents our intuition, our instinct, our memory. It's more about how we instinctively respond rather than how we plan. And in Libra, Libra is cardinal masculine air ruled by Venus. Libra is the sign of the scales. So, as the name portends, Libra seeks balance, Libra seeks harmony and justice and relational intelligence. And being ruled by Venus, this also means that, Venus also relates to justice and diplomacy and aesthetics, as well as the ability to see multiple perspectives. And if we think of what the symbol of the scales really means, it's the scales of justice, the weighing of truth and fairness and reciprocity. And at 12 degrees, we're in the middle degree of the sign, and that's often associated with pattern recognition and awareness. So this moon is not asking us to begin something new. It is instead asking us to look clearly, discern, and see clearly. Is there a place where there is an imbalance? Is there a place where we are over giving or under receiving? Is there a place where we might be compromising in order to maintain harmony? And now I mentioned that the opposing the moon is the sun at 12 degrees of Aries, and the sun is conjunct the part of fortune. And so, while the moon represents the emotional body and our instinct and our memory and our internal world, the sun represents our ego, our identity, our vitality, our conscious direction. And, sun in Aries, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, as we've likely been dwelling upon with the spring equinox or the March equinox, which is the astrological new year, which took place on March 20th. Aries being the first sign of the zodiac is absolutely associated with initiation. It's also associated with independence and courage and just the raw spark of life. And now Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars is long associated with the warrior archetype. And in its highest octave, it's not necessarily aggression, it's really the willingness to exist as oneself. And now the sun is conjunct the part of fortune. And the part of fortune is an Arabic lot. It's a calculated point used in Hellenistic astrology, and it represents alignment, as the name sounds. It represents flow. It represents where life is and feels supported. So there's kind of this embodied rightness. And with the sun conjunct this point in Aries, there's a strong message. This is reminding us that alignment comes through authentic self-expression, speaking our truth from our heart, not through people pleasing, not through over adjusting, but through shining our light and speaking and following and being true to our own truth. We also have, I mentioned we have a super stellium of planets in Aries. So we still have Saturn and Neptune loosely conjunct in the early signs of Aries. Saturn at 5, Neptune at, I think it's 1 or 2 degrees, 2 degrees. And so, we'll spend time here because this is just, this is one of those generational, beyond generational transits. And, it's interesting that it's still very much lighting up. I've talked about it a couple times. Somehow the sun and the moon and this conjunction is still saying hello. And, it's worth noting that that exact conjunction or remembering that happened on February 20th, exactly 1 month before the spring equinox, the March equinox, and, a little over 1 month before this full moon. So, historically, Saturn Neptune conjunctions have coincided with major shifts in collective reality because Saturn represents our structure. Saturn represents our boundaries, our material reality. Saturn is about karma, it's about existing and thriving and living in this 3D world. And Neptune is about illusion and delusion and dreams and spirituality. And it's also about collective imagination. So, illusion meets reality is one of the themes that I've been speaking about, but also dream meets structure. And in Aries, this becomes a new cycle of embodied vision. Being the change that we seek no longer is just an adage that we say or a quote that we put on something. We're being invited to really take this in, feel this in our bones, feel this in our cells. And this full moon is illuminating how that new cycle is already taking form. And now I want to move to a very precise and potent conjunction. Also in Aries, we have Chiron and Eris in an exact conjunction with this full moon in sync. And, Chiron was discovered in 1977, is known as the wounded healer. In myth, let's remember Chiron was a centaur who could heal others. He was seeking to heal himself. He could not heal himself, but in his quest for healing himself, he learned all different healing modalities and became a teacher. He taught those healing modalities to others. And he represents, deeper wounds. He represents healing through awareness. He represents the wisdom that is born from lived experience. Eris, she was discovered, I believe in 2005, and she's the Greek goddess of discord. She was not invited to a wedding with all of the other gods on Mount Olympus, the only one not invited. So she showed up anyway and threw the golden apple into the party and said to the Pharaohs. And all the goddesses started fighting, and it initiated this chain of events that led to the Trojan War. And while Eris represents disruption, she represents not just chaotic disruption for no reason. If you think about what this myth says, she's disrupting the egoic imbalance. And she is, you know, exposing areas where things or people might be excluded. And she is very much, the voice that refuses to be excluded, the voice that refuses to be ignored. So together, these guys are at 25 degrees of Aries, and they bring forward wounds around our identity and our belonging and our ability to be seen or our feelings of being worthy. And so just to know that this full moon very much might touch on some of those themes for us, but really to take comfort. This isn't a reopening of the wound by any stretch. This is this is another chance to refine ourselves, to bring and to refine and reform, to retell maybe some of these stories and to see how potentially even some challenge that we have met in the past that might be remembered again about the time of this full moon, how, we've worked with the energy, how we've healed, how we've strengthened ourselves. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that we're going to get reactivated. It's just that wound might show itself again, and we might be able to really see and hopefully realize all the work that we've done. And also, we can have compassion with ourselves if something happens and we feel a little vulnerable. That's okay to take some space. That is six planets or celestial objects in Aries. Moving over to Pisces. Pisces, we have another, I want to say five or six. We'll go through, I have it written down in my notes. There's another large amount of bodies here. I know that we have Mars conjunct Pallas Athena. And this is interesting because it's a pretty tight conjunction. They're a degree away at 22 and 23 degrees of Pisces. And where Mars represents action and drive and desire, Pallas Athena, being born from the head of Zeus, represents pattern recognition, wisdom and action, and even, strategic intelligence. And I think strategic intelligence might also just mean seeing the energy, seeing the patterns, seeing the truth. But, in Pisces, this becomes a Mars and Pallas Athena together really offer us this energy of intuitive strategy and compassionate action. And it's as if, when we are inspired to take movement, we have the opportunity to connect to being guided and inspired by inner knowing and by our intuition and our heart. We also have Mercury at 14 degrees Pisces. And while Mercury represents our communication and our thoughts and our perception, in Pisces, Mercury operates a little bit differently. It's not linear per se, it's more symbolic. And there's the opportunity here with, Mercury in Pisces, for us to really feel like we're communicating, getting information and sending information through our intuition, through our emotional body, through beyond the words, feeling the energy, seeing the imagery, seeing the truth. So this full moon may bring insights that are felt rather than, just simply logically understood. And we also have the North Node conjunct Vesta in Pisces. The North Node is where we're headed. The North Node represents the direction of collective growth, but it's also about ourselves individually as a part of the collective. And Vesta represents sacred devotion and focus and tending our inner flame. The Vestal virgins in Rome were priestesses who were not virgins, but women unto themselves who tended the eternal flame. And that eternal flame symbolized continuity, and it also just symbolized sacred responsibility. So together, this suggests that our future, collectively, as well as individually, is shaped by what we devote ourselves to. And this really invites all these planets in Pisces and all these planets in Aries are continuing a theme that's been ongoing for a little bit of time now, and that is that we are at this threshold of a new beginning and a new world is beginning to take form. But also there is no rush here. There is the request and the opportunity to be in the moment and to be in the present and to be here and now. And now we have Mars as well as Pallas Athena. Mars and Pallas Athena are actually, they're aspecting Jupiter, which is conjunct Sirius, and they're trining, and trining is a flow of energy. And, Jupiter conjunct Sirius in Cancer, that's been operational for a little bit of time now. It seems to be getting to the point where they were exact, I want to say maybe in between the new moon and full moon. They're still within a degree of each other. So this is still very much operational. But Jupiter is in Cancer and next to Sirius. I mentioned that Sirius in previous podcasts is the central sun to our sun. It's the binary star that helps inform the ascension and descension of humanity's consciousness with the Yuga cycles. And in ancient Egypt, Sirius was associated with the flooding of the Nile, let's not forget. And that is a symbol of renewal and a symbol of life. And Jupiter represents expansion. Expansion in Cancer is about nourishment and emotional safety. And conjunct Sirius, this brings us a sense of growth, but also protection as well as emotional expansion. And if anything, Sirius reminds us of right timing, of waiting. If the Egyptians had to wait for the flooding of the Nile in order to begin to head into growing food for that year or their future. There wasn't anything they could rush about it, right? In the same way that, Sirius and our sun have this binary relationship, and they have this, depending on how you look at it, over 20,000 year cycle of time, the Yuga cycles. And, that's also something that is just operational. It just is the timing that it is. And so part of this full moon that is on the heels of the last new moon is, yes, we are in a powerful new beginning, but let's not discount ourselves or the world if it isn't all magically coming into existence in this exact moment in time. This is about being present and celebrating the joy of the moment and celebrating those small steps that are happening and those small wins that are happening and those small shifts that are happening that are a part of a larger collective transformational energetic wave. And so we still have the minor triangle. I've mentioned this a couple times, that between Neptune and Uranus and Pluto. And this is, those three outer planets changing signs, all the elders at the table guiding this change, guiding this deep restructuring. And so, it's a relatively simple chart in that regard. There's a lot of energy still in Pisces and Aries. There's not any major aspects in the chart beyond the opposition. Jupiter in Sirius is probably one of the most active aspects. It's trining Mars and Pallas Athena, and if the trine is flowing energy between them, so that would mean that our expansion is also informed by those themes of action, but intuitive action, compassionate action. So it's a different kind of action, right? And if we think about, it's also interesting to note that Jupiter and Sirius are squaring the sun and the moon, and the sun and the moon are in an opposition. And, squares and oppositions, those are frictional energies. But just as every new moon, every full moon isn't a chaotic time per se, it's a time of a revelation. It's a time where things might shift and we might have the opportunity to move through something so that something more aligned can take seed and begin to grow. So, with that, I will just kind of say that this moon is not just about relationships, it's about alignment. It's not just about charging ahead, it's about being in harmony and being in balance and, alignment between ourselves and our world, alignment between our action and our intuition, alignment between our dreams and our reality. And, this moon really invites us to step in to even more clarity, even more balance, and even more conscious participation in the future that we are building together. Before we get to the meditation, I just want to do a quick announcement that I'm going to be offering an astrology course again this year, 2026, going to begin in the month of April and mid-April. So if you're not already on my email list, I'll put a link for you to hop onto the email list. That's how you get the coupon code for the discount for the class if you happen to be interested in joining. All right, let's go ahead and get to the meditation. Go ahead and find some place where you can sit comfortably or lie, where you won't be disturbed for the next little bit of time. And once you get comfortable, let your spine be straight. Feel that your shoulders and your hips are stacked or in alignment. And just allow your body to settle. Relax your forehead. Unclench or relax your jaw. Soften your shoulders. And just let your breath deepen naturally. Inhale slowly through the nose. And exhale gently through the mouth. Again, breathing in through the nose. Taking your time. Coming into this moment and releasing that breath through the mouth. And as you breathe in, just imagine you're calling your awareness here and now so that you can be super duper present. And as you breathe out, you're just releasing whatever distractions, whatever connections might be ready to be released for this moment in time. And just let that breath start to nourish you, to clarify you and to nourish you, bringing you here and now. Inhale through the nose, coming into this moment with this breath. Exhale through the mouth, releasing. And staying with that nourishing breath. On the idea of breath, Libra is an air sign. And, it can move into thought, it can move into balance and weighing. But let's begin by also just grounding before we get there. Go ahead and send roots down. Send roots down through the base of your spine, through the soles of your feet, through whatever part of your body is facing the earth that exists beneath you, and send roots down into the ground, wherever you're at, directly beneath you, down and out. And feel yourself known and seen and held as you send your roots down. Feel the steadiness beneath you. Feel that you are seen and supported. And still staying with the breath, gently breathing in and releasing with the exhale. Bring your awareness next to your heart center, the center of connection, and that space that holds the light that is distinctly and quintessentially yours. And just take a breath into the heart. And as we focus on the heart, just feel that flame or that light in your heart begin to grow a little brighter as you're breathing into that space. And as you exhale again, the exhale is an energetic and a metaphorical release. And this full moon sits at the axis of Aries and Libra, of self and other. Libra is inviting connection. And, it's worth right now as you connect to your heart to just check in. Is there anything that you are being asked to bring into balance? There's no need to answer immediately or for the answer to come. Just sort of allow the question to open. And imagine that your heart, which is so powerful, so wise, I understand and believe at least that this is where our intuition comes from. Our heart has more neurons than our brain. Our heart's electric and magnetic fields are many times stronger than our brain. So we make sense that we get information first from our heart. And as you're connecting to that space of your heart, first just maybe place a fingertip or two on your heart and feel the compassion and the love for yourself, for the light and the wisdom and the love that you carry. And imagine now your heart is sending out energy in all directions, out the front of your body, out the back of your body. And the heart, if it is this space of information and intuition and wisdom and the space where we get our intuition from, it's worthwhile as you're connecting to the light of your heart. Imagine this light of your heart is both bright and powerful, but also soft and compassionate. And all of these things, bright and powerful, soft and compassionate, those qualities are applied to you and yourself. And then they extend out into the world. And as this theme of balance and reharmonizing and bringing things into right relations and reciprocity, it's might be a nice time to just stay connected to your heart and check in. Is there any area or space where you may have held back or where you may have overextended? Is there any space that just doesn't need to be a quick fix, just in a check-in of a time of illumination? How can we recalibrate? How can we bring things? What does your heart say that you need to feel balance and harmony and peace? And just notice what comes up. Maybe it's speaking your truth. Maybe it's considering the broader view of the world. Maybe it's both. And just let whatever arises simply arise. This is the medicine of the full moon. And staying connected to your heart center. Imagine that on your spine, as is in my understanding the case, that's where your energetic column of light lives in your energetic field. And over that spinal column and that column of light are two interwoven or kind of serpentine shaped currents of energy. If you've seen the modern caduceus in Western medicine, you'll know that staff with two serpents that are wrapped around the staff is how ancients understood the energy to flow in our human energy field. And I invite you to consider that these two overlapping, almost serpentine-like flowing currents of energy within you, invite them to be, one, the energy of Aries, but let it be a gentle Aries. Maybe it's a gentle red, it's a gentle flame. And the other energy, the other current is the energy of Pisces, this soft oceanic water energy. And just start to visualize them, feel them running on both sides of the body, crossing over in harmony, all up and down your spine. This embodied, courageous warrior energy of Aries. And the intuitive, deeply wise, very almost sensitive energy of Pisces. The Aries energy is the will and our direction. The Pisces energy is our compassion and our surrender. And just feel how both of these energies can live and do live in harmony within you. And maybe even notice if this is a time of illumination and these two energies are flowing, is the flame of Aries a little too strong, or is the ocean of Pisces a little too overwhelming? Is there anything that needs to be, as I was saying, balanced, calibrated? Or are they just naturally beginning to find and flow in rhythm together just by focusing on them? And take a breath, breathe into your heart, but then breathe into this energetic flow that is happening within your field. And breathe out. And just take another couple breaths here. As you breathe, just allow these energies to come into balance. And keeping your awareness with your heart. Now reconnect to that inner flame, or the light that is just right at the essence of your heart. And imagine that this flame or this light also represents the wisdom of the heart and this sense of right action, not reaction, not overthinking or overreacting or dwelling, but just the next aligned step. And as you connect to your heart and the wisdom that is there, it feels aligned for you. Maybe slowly say to yourself, inwardly or outwardly, I trust my inner knowing. I trust my inner knowing. I move with clarity. I move with clarity. I act in alignment with my truth. I act in alignment with my truth. And now take another slow, easy breath in through the nose. Feel your body as you breathe. Exhale through the mouth. Breathing in again, coming into the space, into the room, into the place where you began this meditation. Just feel the space around you. And release the exhale. And as you breathe in again, just breathe in that you don't need to resolve everything right now. And breathe out. And just spending a little bit more time, maybe a breath or two, just sitting with the awareness that this full moon offers. Awareness versus call to action. This is about integration that is unfolding over time. Wonderful. And now just gently begin to return. Deepen your breath. Perhaps wiggle your fingers or your toes. And when you are ready, open your eyes. And I invite you to set the intention to carry this awareness and this balance with you back out into your day, back out into the world. Have a blessed full moon. Stay tuned. I am going to be offering my astrology course again coming up in a couple weeks. And if you are not already on my email list, be sure to join because that's how you're going to get a discount on the course if you have any interest. All right, guys, take care, bright blessings, and so much love.